Hello and welcome to the Cross-Cultural Communication Podcast, the show that takes you on a trip towards learning and understanding more about the elements of cross-cultural communication. We're your hosts today. My name is Point. Joined with me is Note and Gan. สวัสดีครับ
สวัสดีครับ
Okay. Today, we're going to talk about how the elements of Thai culture shapes our daily lives, communication styles, and our behaviors in everyday life. We'll discuss the ins and outs of the so-called Thainess and be sure to listen all the way for the details.
But before we start the podcast, let me inform you that we have a Lounge account that you can add a friend so that you can come back and listen to any part of the podcast at any time. Add the CCC podcast chatbot at your friend now and don't miss the great content we are having for you. Now, without further ado, enjoy the podcast.
This podcast is about different aspects of Thai culture and its relation with how they behave, the way they do with their daily lives, and conduct organizational businesses. Firstly, we will discuss all our Thai culture to show you the big picture. Then we will scope down to each step of Thai people, starting from the family when Thais are young, then moving to the educational culture and the student life until enrolling to the university. After that, we will move to Thai working culture and its international relation of Thai organization. Last but not least, we will use two cultural models, which are Hofstede and Lewis models, to analyze Thai culture. Lastly, our host will have some personal stories to share about the experiences and difficulties encountered while collaborating in projects with international colleagues and connecting international businesses in Thailand.
That's right, Krab Not. So the objective of this podcast is to explain the Thai culture and its influence on Thai people, right? Additionally, some additional discussions from us hosts and experience we've been through to illustrate and explain, right?
What you will get after watching the podcast is you will learn about the highlight of Thai culture, understand the root behind the way Thai think and act. We can understand ourselves and one another. Furthermore, knowing Thai culture will help you when conducting business, law, any task with Thai organization, making the meeting and deal roll out smoothly.
When we talk about Thailand, we think that Thailand is a land of smiles. Thailand is lying in the southeastern part of Asia between Cambodia, Myanmar, and Laos. It has two important water sources, like the Gulf of Thailand toward the south and Andaman Sea to the west. Thailand has a cultivated culture strongly influenced by India and China. So no wonder Thailand appears to have a very big variety of culture that seem to be exotic yet are really tightly blended into its own Thai culture. A good example of this thing is the Thai food. Thai cuisine has many variations because it has received influence from its neighboring countries like India and China. Thai food has a strong savory taste with a combination of spicy, salty, and sweet.
That's right. I think Thai food is definitely on the top of my favorite cuisines. However, in today's discussion, we want to dive deeper into the idea of the small cultures, right? We want to discuss the Thai communication styles, the language symbols, cultural norms, and how us Thais behave.
The reason we chose Thai culture as our topic is because Thai culture is extraordinary in its own way due to the fact that Thailand is home for many ethnicities which have various cultural identity, and most of those stem from the ethnic Thai people, blended with a concept of Buddhism and Hinduism, also a creation of Theravada Buddhism, which influence a lot of Thai belief and tradition. For example, we often notice that Thai people worship God for many different origins, from the Buddha to various Hindu and Chinese gods. Even so, traditional culture coexist with this exotic one and blend into a cultural identity unique to Thai. The fact that The Thai culture and norm appear to be strong, also make the subject particularly interesting to investigate. And it seems obvious that the culture and norm in Thai are deeply rooted in the Thai people mind and heart.
Mm. Yes, Thai
Right.
culture has a
That's really
very
interesting.
unique, interesting background. Oh, I found some interesting article from a club unique. Is a home for its home resource business that targets foreigners in Thailand. They come up with an article advise foreigners the do's and don'ts that uh, combine with Thai culture for they to stay in Thailand. Okay, first let me show you what they say. First, do not touch the head. It is considered important you do not touch a Thai person's head or ruffle with their hair.
The reason behind this is because it is a Thai belief that the head is the scared part of the body, since it is the highest part of individual and should not be touched without permission.
I agree with that. The second one is Thai people always take off their shoes. In Thailand, is the feet. They consider feet as the farthest part from the head, and from that, they consider feet a dirty part of the body. So they always take off their shoes.
In contrary to the highest part of the body, like head, feet are considered the dirtiest part of the body. So Thai usually take off their shoe when when Thai enter some place like relative house, temple, or even a school to show their respect.
And so I will continue with my example. Third one is to keep yourself cool. In Thailand, they usually say the word giant yen in many situations. It means to tell other people and ourselves to keep a cool heart instead of a rush with temper, not temper, in many situations. Another thing is when you pass to other people, you may ducking your head down like this to show respect, or when you need to apologize to them or for your interruption. Last thing is Thai people do not point finger at any person. Pointing is a no-no in Thailand. The person you point at, they may think you are so offensive behavior that you point at them. I'm sure that Thais are very pretty familiar with this concept, whether they are consequently thinking about them or not. So if you have some foreign friends or colleagues, be sure to share these ideas with them.
Okay, well, if we take a look back into the history, right, we would find that, unlike other Southeast Asian countries, Thailand has never been colonized. So for this reason, a lot of Thai cultures, right, are still present in Thailand, especially the original, native Thai cultures. Different practices, like religious cultures especially, considering 95% of Thais are Buddhist, and these characteristics has been clearly reflected through the Thai culture very apparently. In the research paper that I've read, it's called Cultural Challenges in Thailand, an Unchanged Fact. The author takes a look at these difficulties of the Swedish executives who are trying to adapt to Thai cultures that stem from the Thai behaviors that's deeply rooted within the society. And some of the examples he mentioned, including the first one, is the concept of Greng Jai. So Greng Jai can be explained it as the behavior of having a polite attitude towards people, right? And towards people surrounding you in an attempt to try not to offend anyone. The concept of Greng Jai is an important part of Thai culture. As we can see, it's often like avoiding conflict and confrontation, because Thai people tends to not really get themselves involved in heated situation like that, right? they often try to be Greng Jai most of the time, and this leads Thai people to not really expressing their opinions when they can be perceived as contrary to one another in order to maintain a good relationship or in an attempt to do so. So the Greng Jai has become like some part of Thai behavior that people may or may not think about, but certainly they do it most of the time.
And another example of Thai culture is the country of smile. I think some of the foreigner already know this. The country of smile is regarded as the Thai people always being friendly and kind to each other. This expression also has its origin within the Buddhist religion in the concept of Nam Jai. And Nam Jai is kind of like to be nice and be nice to each other. Nam Jai can also be extended as a guideline within the religion. It says that you should always be kind and helpful to each other without expecting anything in return.
For more information on Thai culture, another one is to be Samruam. Samruam is to mean another concept in Buddhist religion, which you should be restrained with your feeling according to the Samruam. You should never show anger or sadness in high context. This kind of high context express this feeling could lead to embarrassment and an uncomfortable situation. Another Thai culture is to be sabai. It is a well-known term in Thai culture. It can be described as a mentally, which means take it easy, do not stress, or to be a laid back. It's often described as a characteristic personality trait among Thai people, which contributes to impression of Thai people being trouble-free and contented.
So I think these five are like pretty interesting, right? And we see them all the time in the Thai society, and whether like to varying degrees, but we often see them, especially in different places that Thai people are in. And in another research paper that I've read on, which is the investigation to aspects of Thai culture and its impact on Thai students in International School of Thailand. It's a pretty long title. Okay. Anyway, the author explains that Thai society prizes harmony far more than the mere truth, right? It's a concept of, it's like Thai people tries to please others and tries to have a pleasing result rather than being direct and just like going very bluntly all the time. When they're trying to say something like although the truth is the fact, right? But sometimes it can be hurtful. They would try to avoid being hurtful. And this facts like the evasiveness towards the answer of Thai people underlies the concept of trying to not be uncomfortable in situation, which is like some really apparent characteristics of Thai people, in my opinion.
Yep, I have some more examples to add on. Okay. The Thai people often avoid saying no because in the Buddhist faith, it is considered an unpleasant to say no. Another example is that in general, Thai people consider their reputation as a very important aspect, which also originates from Buddhist religion. Okay, let us move to a different stage of Thai culture. The first one, which is the foundation of life in Thai culture, is a family culture. From the research, Thai people have more emphasis on family than in the average Western country. It is common that children are raised by their grandparents, aunts, or uncle rather than their own parents in the situation that the parents have to work far away from them. Also, elder brother or sister are expected to help little ones, which can be financially or housework like cooking or chores.
And another aspect is having meals together. It is kind of a strong family relationship in Thai culture, right? During dinner time, all the members will come together in the house and wait for every last person to come to get home before they start having meal together, which is a really interesting way of showing respect.
Additionally, respecting elder in the house is an important concept in Thailand. Younger ones should behave and listen to the elder, since Thai people believe that being grateful to elder who raised them will lead to a successful life.
From the foundation from family culture, they moving to education culture. In education culture of Thai people, high school starts at 8 o'clock in the morning with a morning assembly. However, some students may arrive at school as early as 6 o'clock in the morning because their parents have to drop them off early if they have to go to work next. School class will then start after the morning assembly until 3 p.m., with a lunch break at noon, a total of 6-hour class.
As for a rule in school, students are not allowed to wear shoes in school building. And when they pass a teacher, they must stop and let the teacher pass them first. In case that they need to pass teacher, students should bow their head when passing to show regard to the teacher.
And the evaluation in Thai school is like really the important thing, right? Because Thai seems to consider grades a lot, and students are usually ranked by their grades. And grades are also essential for entering university. So in a lot of times, we often see Thai parents especially being strict with their students' grades. And funny enough, in schools, they sometimes are graded by like Thai culture and behavioral scores as well, which is pretty interesting in Thai schools.
Yeah, that's it true.
In the Thai work culture, in Thailand, people generally give name on introduction after being referred with title, and business cards are regularly exchanged upon meeting with individual. The traditional way of card exchange is to pass them with a right hand. Additionally, the subordinate is introduced first. Punctuality in Thailand is somewhat flexible. However, it is polite to inform author if you are going to be late. In Thailand, business meetings are formal but polite. The workplace atmosphere is not rigid. Comparing to the other Eastern Asian countries, however, the hierarchy is rigid with a strict chain of command. The higher rank are the ones who make decisions and are relatively authoritarian. The more one respect and accompany Thai culture and tradition, the more acceptance one will get and vice versa. As in respect of manner, one should be very cautious when making negative comment about someone or criticizing them directly, since it is considered really rude for Thai person.
And promotion is generally based on seniority or time spent within the company, right? Those that have worked for a longer time in a certain company, or those who are generally of more seniority or older, are treated with more respect. And promotion is more often than not granted to them. It's heavily influenced by seniority.
Using Thai work culture, then look into the Thai culture with its international relations. Thai people usually develop a personal relationship with others before conducting businesses together. The reason behind this is Thai people want to check their partners, whether they are trustable and forming a long-term partnership. To maintain this long-term partnership, small gifts between partners are given occasionally.
Most of the time, the first meeting is to have a meal together and talk about business, idea, and personal question. Asking personal questions may cause discomfort to other partner, but it is an important step to gain trust from Thai company. These personal questions usually about their family, age, hobby, and education. Therefore, Thai people expect their partner to be open-minded and can maintain long-term relationship.
And the organization also relates a lot to the international business, right? And it's heavily in accordance to the work culture here in Thailand. And it's a sensitive issue, in my opinion, and discussed amongst the high-level managers in these kinds of meetings.
So I have some tips for you when conducting businesses with Thai organization. First, business card should be received with the right hand and address the person's first name on the card to show respect to them. Second is to be formal and punctual when having a business meeting.
Okay. Another important or interesting model of cultural communication is the Hofstede model, right? So I would like to bring out one of those models, and each of you guys will also bring one of them out to relate it with the Thai culture, right? So I'll talk about the individualism versus collectivism in Thailand. So individualistic culture points towards the approach where individuals and goals depend on the relationship is preferred, right? And the collectivistic one is the one that's straight opposite. It's where sociability and interdependence with the other people within the same hierarchical level is more important. In collectivistic societies, cultures are more about respect for the authority and constantly ongoing conflict avoidance to make people around. So it's to keep harmony around. So it means collectivistic cultures are more family and oriented and relationship oriented than individualistic cultures. So Thailand fits very well on the collectivistic society spectrum and demonstrates a lot of these characteristics, especially how they tend to live together in a larger kind of family, right? And also they tend to try to keep harmony and avoid losing their faith, and that's a lot of strong collectivism present here in Thai culture.
The second dimension of Hofstede model we want to cover is the power distance. The power distance is defined as a level of extent people with less authority admit that the power is distributed unevenly among the members of the society. According to Hofstede Insight, Thailand scored 64 on the power distance dimension, which is considerably high and can be interpreted as a society where privilege for those with authority is acceptable. In the working aspect, this leads to a strict chain of command and decisions that are usually made from those with high authority. However, in comparison to the average score of Asian countries of 71, Thailand scores slightly lower.
Another important and interesting aspect of Hofstede model is an uncertainty avoidance. Uncertainty avoidance is a term describing the action of people to avoid uncertain situations. To avoid the uncertain situations, people set up rules and guidelines to prevent a risky action, which may lead to an unknown situation, whether that situation will result in a good or bad way. From the HofstedeInsight.com, Thai people have a score of 64 uncertainty avoidance. Therefore, Thai businesses culture have many strict guidelines for their employees to follow. Employees are closely watched by their manager to minimize their flaws in the work, and many decisions are always required by a high-ranking member to decide. This can cause the delay in the work process because there might be too much decision for the manager to look at, and the employee need to wait for it instead of deciding the decision by themselves in some situation.
In addition to Hofstede's model, we also want to bring up the Lewis model. Lewis, after visiting 135 countries and working in more than 20 of them, came to a conclusion that humans can be divided into three clear categories. that is not based on nationality or religion, but rather on behavior. And he named his typologies the linear active, multi-active, and the reactive type. So here are the definitions and characteristics of each type. First, the linear actives are more task-oriented. They are highly organized planners and complete the actions chains by doing one thing at a time, and preferably in accordance with a linear agenda. Right?
For the multi-active, person who are characterized as multi-active are emotional and impulsive person who attach importance to family, feeling, and relationship in general. They like to do many things at the same time and are poor followers of agenda.
The last aspect is the reactive. The reactive person are good listeners. Reactive are very interested in action or discussion, preferring to first to listen and then establish the other's position, then react to it and form their own opinion. From the chart that you can see, do you guys agree that from the Lewis model, Thailand is a reactive type after China and Vietnam? Do you guys agree with it?
I would say that's pretty accurate. Right? For example, in classrooms or like public events, whenever there's a volunteer that's asked to come out or when students expected to answer the teacher's question, right, we often see that there would be an eerily long and awkward silence. Often, Thais don't want to be the first to present themselves, probably due to them not wanting to potentially lose face.
I would say so, I tell myself. But on the other hand, I also noticed that Thai can be really good listener since they wait for someone to initiate and then react to them.
So I think we can take the advantage of the characteristic by acting intuitively, being patient, and looking at a bigger picture. Eyes can be very good at emphasizing and providing views holistically.
Okay, now that we've explored different concepts of Thai culture and behaviors, right? And also after examining Lewis's and Hofstede's model of cultural communication in accordance to Thai culture, now let's move on to the section of experience sharing, where us four will be sharing our direct experiences related to Thai culture in our daily lives, starting from Kunkan. Go ahead.
First, I would like to inform you that this is not my story, but it is my co-detective story. She is an employee in the international insurance business in Thailand. And as you can expect, she got into her work as a secretary of the video manager. What I want to say is, even though it is an international company that works in Thailand, it has some kind of a semi-mechanic of like Thai company and the international company. Like, my relative should obey and do whatever her boss asks her to do. However, her job must also be good enough to get her the promotion. So the point is, even though it is an international company, Thai influencers still have a great effect on it. Since if you want to get a promotion, you should behave well under your boss or under your manager. As for the next story of Poi.
Okay. So my story is more about my experience, right? In the past summer month, I have had a chance to work together with a group of people doing UI and UX design tasks. And the special thing is that this project is volunteered, so it's open to any people anywhere from the world to sign up. And by joining, I had a chance to work with people from various different countries, like Indonesia, Germany, Mexico, and the USA. And in the process, I noticed a few things. My Indonesian friend, my closest friend from that project, who worked as the project manager, I noticed that he establishes a really clear reactive and multi-active characteristics. Let me explain. So he likes doing multiple things at once, right? And often involves the team during the decision-making process and discussions. So because of that characteristic traits, he's a really good person who like cheers up the team and get the team to work together really well. And well, and the question is that, did he develop a highly organized work schedule? Well, the answer is not really, although he's a good team player. Sometimes his actions can be seen as like not really organized, even though he's the project manager. Like when compared to other people who are more like linear actives, I think he's not like that proficient in doing the organized task, but he's a really good team player. And well, let's say our projects got delayed for a couple of months. However, he was really good at what he does, right? And yeah, since he's from Indonesian, in accordance to Lewis model, right, we can see that he falls really in the scale of reactive and a little bit towards the multi-active type, which fits pretty accurately to the way he acts during the work process. And oh, okay. Another colleague I had a chance to work with comes from Germany. On the other hand, she's very strict with the schedule and is highly job oriented. So she's not really afraid to make arguments whenever we're having discussions and decision making. Whenever she has some idea that she believes is the right thing to do, she would not be afraid to just tell it to the team and really insist on that idea and supports it with logic. And yeah, so she's really good at doing that as well. She's very persuasive and very respectable and very strong when she makes arguments. And yeah, sometimes she can be impatient, but at the end of the day, both of my colleagues are really like giving a lot of attention and care to the project. And in doing so, I've noticed that these cross-cultural aspects and in accordance to Lewis' scale has really been brought to light here. That's what I noticed from doing the work with them. So in addition, right, me as a Thai person working in an international group project, right, I also take a look back at myself, and I find myself a lot of times displaying a lot of Thai characteristics we have mentioned earlier, right. A lot of times I would be gung jai, and I would try to avoid conflict. I would have some opinion of my own, but then, yeah, I would listen for the other people to discuss first before I share my points, which I don't know why I do that, but I did it like subconsciously. And a lot of times I try to, when I have an idea, right, but my colleagues come up with a better one, I tend to go with the flow more than insisting with my ideas. So I see myself as like a person who really avoids conflict and really maybe sometimes not really into arguments. And often a lot of times going jai. So a lot of time when I have ideas, I tend to keep it quiet or may not speak it out in the initial stages, right? But rather let other people talk first. And also, if I take a look back at myself, I see that a lot of time I tend to be sabai. Whenever someone does something that irritates me, I would say, oh, just brush it off. It's okay. It's a group project. If everyone has something else to do, it's a volunteer. So don't be serious. I'll just like brush it off and have that sabai manner. So yeah, I think my Thai characteristics also is displayed very clearly as I work, and I believe that my colleagues also notice a lot of that.
From your story, I can know that you inherited a strong Thai trait culture. Therefore, we argue that it is very remarkable that there are clear cultural challenges which all in way originate from a strong religious faith and strong established norm within Thai culture. Cultural challenges we have identified can be reduced to the Thai culture. which in turn can be derived from Buddhism. The challenge can be understood by linking them to different Buddhist expressions, as well as trying to create an understanding of the Buddhist mindset, such as เกรงใจ สบาย and สำรวม
In addition, distinctiveness in Thai, a smaller scope such as the education and workplace culture, also set Thai apart culturally. Perhaps the next time we encounter cross-cultural communication problem, you may not need to be too เกรงใจ or scared of losing face. The reactive nature of Thai can be strengthened by harmonizing and looking at things from a bigger picture, while assessing feeling, empathize, and challenge ideas holistically.
And by understanding the root causes behind the way us Thais think and act, we can better understand one another, cooperate with people from different cultures and more efficiently, and come out of conflicts with insights that can improve ourselves with us and helps us understand one another better. So, if you like what you have watched, don't forget to press like, hit the subscribe button, and be sure to leave a comment down below. Check out our Line official account where you can re-listen to this podcast in chapters. Thank you for watching, and we're signing out. สวัสดีครับ
ครับ
We have